Hello and welcome, Exiles, to my Blight of Contagion Bog Shaman. I made this character mainly because I just like the skill. It has the ability to allow Blight to spread through Contagion, and I think this is a lot better than Essence Drain for two reasons. Reason number one is its base cast time is 0.25. That means it's very fast to cast. So when you do Contagion plus Essence Drain, you have to cast Contagion and then you cast Essence Drain. So you have two things that are taking time to do. One of the things being much faster makes it a much faster, you get it activated. Reason number two over Essence Drain is Essence Drain is a tiny little projectile that if you miss, it just feels bad. Like for example, if there's a monster right here, I cast Contagion and then I slightly misshoot my Essence Drain, it's going to result in no Contagion spread, and then I have to cast again. Whereas Blight is a big cone AoE that instantly picks up the mob and then just spreads. For me, as far as like 2-button builds go, this one plays very smooth because it's a 2 fast succession casts where I don't have to aim very precisely, and then it clears all the way through an entire legion or an entire breach, and it's just got that satisfying realm to it. The other advantage of Blight of Contagion is it deals about, I think, double the damage of Essence Drain. At 5 stacks, I think it's about double the damage of Essence Drain, so it's a bit better of a dot skill. Overall, and compared to regular Blight, it is still, I think, half the damage of regular Blight at full stacks. But the thing about regular Blight is you have to stand still and maintain your cast. Regular Blight goes up to 20 stacks, but its base duration is 2 seconds, which means you pretty much just have to stand there and hold down the cast button. Whereas Blight of Contagion goes up to 5 stacks, and it has a 5-second duration, which means you can kind of just shoot it a little bit, get full stacks, walk around for like 6 seconds because we have a pretty good duration on it, and then keep casting. So it allows you to be a lot more mobile and a lot more feels good. I think it's a good middle ground between the damage of Blight and the feels good nature of a dot build, and I think it works out. Overall, single target, it's nothing really to get too excited about. I think we're dealing like 4 or 5 million with Wither stacks up and Despair and whatnot. Not the greatest, but the thing is that's kind of where dot skills are right now. I know a lot of people want to say dot skills are limited by dot cap, but it's just not true. Dot skills are limited by the fact they don't have a lot of scaling vectors. When you play a dot skill, you pretty much only have like 2 scaling vectors. It's pretty much dot multi and percent damage. I guess technically you could say, oh, you have Wither, which helps a little bit, and we have the ability to subtract res. But there's not much sources of minus chaos res outside of like a helmet mod and Despair. Aspect of Spider, if you put on the chest, like you have to really stretch to get minus chaos res. It's not really a readily available source. Compared to hit-based builds, they get attack speed, they get action speed, they get crit multi, they get pen. They have a lot more scaling vectors, and that's the real reason dot builds end up being a lot lower. And I know what a lot of people want to say is, but poison, and here's the thing, poison is a different thing. I don't think you can really associate poison with dot skills as a whole. If you look at cold dot, chaos dot, fire dot, they all kind of have the same issue. They're pretty much limited by the fact they have their gem levels, their percent damage, and dot multi, and that's like their only scaling vectors, and it's super limited. But regardless, it's plenty of damage for all content in terms of like where it matters, where the DPS matters if you want to really do high-end HP, DR scaling monster mobs, stuff like that. Anyways, as for the defensive layers of this character, we could have gone for Dissolution to go for higher DPS scaling. Dissolution is one of those things where I like it on a budget, but I don't like it on a decent amount of investment, and I just wanted to make a feels good character. I wanted to invest into this character and just have it be a feels good, run to a map, put down my Blight of Contagion, have it just spread through and just be satisfying. So what I went with was no Dissolution combined with a Sublime Vision Purity of Lightning with a Divine Flesh. So what this allows me to do is between my Watcher's Eye, which has fire and cold taken as lightning, and my Sublime Vision here, I have 50% of elemental damage taken as lightning, and then I have Divine Flesh, which is 50% of elemental damage taken as chaos. So what ends up happening is this gets me around a lot of the monsters that have penetration, like for example, Shaper Balls, Edziri, Double Flame Blast, Fire Pen, and it also allows us to not have to invest into much res on our gear. Our gear has pretty much no res on it. Ultimately, if we took off the Mage Blood, which has a Topaz Flask, I'll take this off real quick, we would still be overcapped on res. This is basically just giving us max res. And quite frankly, I could have put more res on my gear for lightning because we have a very high aura effect on our period of lightning. Our period of lightning, we get to go Eternal Blessing, which allows us to have an Empower on it, which makes us easily get to the level 23 mark. I could have just a 20/20 Purity Lightning and that would have worked. So we get the max res, and then we get a bunch of aura effect from the Eternal Blessing and the Sublime Vision, which means there's a lot of free lightning res, and then you just need a little bit of extra res on gear between Chaos res, which you get from the Bog Witch Ascendancy, and then theoretically, I also have Chaos res from the Doriani Jewel as well. And technically, I could have got Chaos res on my helmet or Chaos res on my boots if I really wanted to force more of it in. But the idea is it subtracts a lot of the gear costs in terms of fire and cold and allows you to get a high max resistance. On top of that, it ends up making it so enemies can poison us fairly consistently, which allows us to get high uptime of Venom Drinker, which we can use to get more max res. So for example, when I proc Venom Drinker, I will go to 88 max res. So ultimately, do I really need this Topaz in? Probably not. I could probably just use a different flask, but that's neither here nor there. Point is, we're doing that for max res. We're doing Sanguine Power for a bunch of life scaling on our gear via getting high ES gear pieces. It's all about dense fossil crafting on the top tier ES bases, Warlock gloves and boots, Lich's circlet helmet, and Twilight Regalia. That's pretty much all there is to it. And then Toad Pack gives us really nice AoE, which is just feels good. I actually invested into quite a bit of AoE on my tree with this cluster here, a Assert Dominance plus Towering Threat here. And technically, I could end up going to Blast Radius if I decide to. I haven't decided if I want that or not. I think my AoE at this point is pretty good for the Blight of Contagion. You'll see it. I'll show it in a map real quick here. And then on top of that, 40% more damage just kind of says, hey, you should probably play a dot. The lose life is not the end of the world. I end up stacking a lot of regen via tattoos. I invested in Irrational Doctrine, invested in a regen on Flask. Ultimately, the biggest thing I would say is when I say dissolution is budget versus non-dissolution is going to cost you a lot more, all you would have to do is change your Divine Flush location to be another spot, grab Eternal Youth, and go dissolution with recharge to sustain that lose life. And this would allow you to not have to invest into all the regen, save you a lot of cost in your gear. It would get you more damage, but then it would take away the feels good nature. I am playing with a Defiance just for the feels good nature of if an enemy hits me, if I get shotgunned a bunch, I don't die. I like to be able to look at chat, pay attention to what's going on there. Technically, I have died once on this character, I think, while doing a bunch of 8-mod maps. And that was when I looked away to read chat and I got hit with a bleed because I forgot to put on the Pantheon that says, you don't die to bleeds when you look at chat. Basically what happens is, if you get hit with a really bad bleed, this thing essentially prevents you from dying to it if you're not paying attention to your health bar. And I didn't have that on yet. Soul of Brine King, I probably could swap this to something else. I'm pretty sure if you don't take cold damage, the enemy can't freeze you because most enemies do not have an all damage freeze mod. Same with Ignite. Another nice advantage of having all your damage taken as a specific element is I believe it prevents enemies' abilities to inflict ailments of that type unless they have an all damage can do this sort of thing, which most monsters do not have. Yeah. Anyways, that's the setup of the character. Let's go to showcase the map. This is not something I would really recommend on a budget, the setup I did. Mathil did a version with Dissolution, like I said, much more budget, much more friendly. This is more or less, I just wanted to play something that was enjoyable to me, which is Blight of Contagion, and I wanted to just have some fun farming with it. I'm going to be playing with this on stream, farming, basically working towards, I need to make money to attempt to finish my shield for the Oshabi character, which is a more like endgame scaling project, but at the same time, there's a lot of builds I want to make. Like I kind of want to make an Aura Stacker Scion type of thing. I want to do that as well. So there's multiple things on my radar that I would like to do, but I can't. And here's the advantage of like things like Dissolution. It's like if you're getting shotgun damage and you can, not Dissolution, things like Defiance. If I was playing Dissolution, I couldn't do this. This is the main difference between doing a Dissolution setup and not, is Dissolution requires you to be always paying attention, and I like to be able to just chill and not pay attention, for example. So that's why I wanted to do a non-dissolution setup. It gives you less damage, it gives you a technically smaller max hit because you have a lower HP pool, but then it makes your gameplay end up being way more chill, if that makes sense. It's being way more chill. So that is why I chose to do this. Currently, I'm trying a strategy where I'm fishing for the Divine Altar. I think this is probably just like this is not a good farming strategy, but I'm literally just going around looking for altars, eater altars, with the Divine Shrine with a bunch of the eater pack size and stuff. It's not a great strategy, but we're trying it for now. Once again, I'm not convinced that reflecting mists are real. But yeah, anyways, that's a look at the character. That's what I'm playing. I just figured I'd share her. This is not a character I'd recommend on any sort of budget the way I'm making it. However, if you look at a dissolution setup like what I'm going to keep referencing Mathful because he made a video on it and it's a way cheaper setup, that's a great way to do it. As always, thanks for watching, Exiles. Hopefully you enjoyed. Take care and peace out. Have a good one.